it doesn't work in a silo like that. I think that's the biggest thing we've learned is like, if you're going to be educating on any type of technical content, you need the reference content for people to digest and absorb as best they can, but then they need a place they can go ask questions and get clarifications and give examples. And like, without both of those pieces of the pie, like, I don't think it would work.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I am joined by Nick Eubanks. He is the founder of From the Future, a full funnel marketing agency, Nifty Co., a new Web3 agency. He's the partner at Agency Builder. He's the co-founder of Traffic Think Tank, which is the world's largest private SEO community. And the list goes on and on. Nick, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Chase.
Dude, like, no joke, your About Us page is insane. It's like, there's so much going on there. But you're definitely an agency guy. Talk to me, when did you get into the agency world?
First agency was 2007, called Atomni. Ended up exiting that after about 2 years, after building cobbling together a CMS on CodeIgniter that somebody wanted. And then went from there to build essentially the first version of Yelp in Japan, called Toshobako, which means suggestion box. And that got scooped up by Ziff Davis for the tech and the users. Then went and did a stint as a partner at an e-commerce company selling traffic cones and parking blocks called Traffic Safety Store for about 5 years. While I was there, I accidentally created an agency called I'm From the Future, because it was just going to be it was just meant to be a tax shelter for consulting, and hired my brother-in-law to run it because I had a full-time job. And that was 2014. Fast forward to 2017, I had a couple $1 million in revenue and 20 full-time employees. And my girlfriend at the time was just like, you have to sort of shit or get off the pot. So I exited the e-com company to do FTF full-time in November 2017. January 2018, we bought 2 agencies, 6 days apart from each other, Webris in Miami and True Voice Media here in Philadelphia. One of my largest professional mistakes. I don't know why my ego was as big as it was to think that I would be able to pull that off, but that was a dumpster fire. Churned through like 30% of those clients because I had no fucking idea what I was doing.
Wow.
Managed to make it through COVID without laying anybody off magically, because we lost our 3 biggest clients all in the month of March 2020. In January 2020, I brought on a CEO, poor guy, stepped into the lion's den before we knew COVID was coming. David's been a godsend though, one of the best things that probably ever happened to that agency. And then we just completed the acquisition in July of this year of Plush Media out in Los Angeles to add on sort of an entire paid media, trade desk, paid strategy side to the business that we were sort of missing. And with that acquisition, I am completely off of the org chart. So I was relishing in, not being actively in agency, like day-to-day agency world. And that lasted about 3 months. And now I have another brand new agency on my hands that's doing mainly smart contract, Web3 marketing, on-ramps technology, and a lot of stuff with NFTs.
I definitely want to talk about that in a little bit. Okay, lots to unpack there. Were you living in Japan?
No, just visiting frequently.
Wow, that's interesting.
So built the company here in Philadelphia. My main guy, my main content manager, Yo Ameda, lived in New York. A couple of other key contacts that were native Japanese lived in India, believe it or not. That's like there's a big constituency there, and would mainly go over there usually to meet with media companies and set up bank transfers and stuff. Because in 2009 to 2012, when we were building and scaling Toshobako, Japan still operated like the early 90s. Like everything was paper, everything was faxed. Is kind of ridiculous for how technical advanced you think of them as a culture. Like everything on the internet there is still like 10 years behind.
That's really interesting. And are you a Philly guy? I grew up in Philly, well, just outside.
Same. I grew about an hour and a half or so north of here, but I came for college and never left.
Nice. That's awesome. So let's go back to, you acquired 2 agencies and you said that was a misstep.
Yeah, one of
In
my
retrospect, if you were to do that again, what would you do differently?
well, so we just did it. I mean, this time it's understanding, like, all the things I didn't know that I didn't know. So speaking to all of the clients, interviewing each of the team members, recreating the org chart, and understanding, different people are going to be in different roles, and understanding what people's motivations were and what the clients expected. The biggest thing we did wrong there was I bought two other agencies that had their own clients and their own people, and their people were used to doing the deliverables their way, and their clients were used to the reporting cadence and the look and feel of the deliverables that they had paid for and were used to getting. And I was just like, well, you're now all, at the time we hadn't rebranded to From the Future yet. It was still on From the Future. So it's just, well, you're all IFTF clients now. So you all get IFTF deliverables, and, regardless of what you were sold in that SOW, we're taking it over, and this is how we do things now. And that's a really bad idea. And I don't recommend doing that.
Nice. Well, it obviously didn't, drive you out of the industry. You just did it again. But this agency you acquired is more about, did you say ad buying, not like full funnel?
Yeah, we got a trade desk account, and it's all paid media. And Neil, who's come on and stayed on as a partner, who's the founder of Plush, has built a really incredible book of business. So, now FTF, like, we got to bolt on UFC, the NBA, Divinix, Joanne's Boxing Gym, like a bunch of big names. Whereas before, our most recognizable consumer brands were probably like Sandals Resorts. And then, there's a long list of technology and SaaS companies that marketers would recognize, but, our friends and parents that aren't tech freaks probably wouldn't know who they were.
So out of curiosity, so I come from the agency world working with predominantly small businesses. When you say you guys are now working with massive brands, I'd be curious, is what you do for them formulaic, or is it completely bespoke to the customer, completely unique when you get to that level?
That's the true downfall of an agency, though, right? Is like, there's all these life cycles that are fascinating to me on the agency side. And like, one of them is usually the founder is usually the SME, or they're a great salesman. I've seen it both ways. I've seen, tremendous sales efforts and a huge sales team, and a constant need to refill the funnel, because, average lifetime of a client in sales-led agencies is probably 6 months. And then you've got the other ones where it's the innovator, the visionary, the person who wants to do it differently and better. And the work just comes to them. Word gets around. They don't ever have to do marketing. Referrals are and strategic partnerships, keep the pipeline full. The problem is you can't scale an agency that way. And the only way you can scale an agency, right, is to create systematic processes that everybody is trained on, and you create redundancy, and you have to do resource utilization and resource planning against, we sell deliverables, or we sell packages, and this is how many hours it takes, and this is my net labor cost, so this is our minimum margin and overhead with taxes and insurance, and it pops out the other end. But like, that is miserable. It's a miserable life, because you're, even if the work is getting results, there's no creativity, there's no ingenuity there, and there's not room for it. You can't scale an agency sustainably with really big ideas, unless you're Gary Vaynerchuk, apparently.
Well, that's the rub, right? And I remember reading a really interesting article from Will Reynolds, the founder of Sear in Philly.
Will's building is three blocks down this street, like literally.
Nice, amazing guy. I mean, I've never spoken with him or anything, but the reputation is stellar. And he wrote a piece about basically a lesson he learned in that, and I imagine it happened like this: somehow some big company or big brand catches wind that you guys are doing amazing things. They say, "Can we work with you?" Your agency's like, "Well, we're running a scalable agency, but this is awesome. Like, we get to work with the NBA or whatever it is." They've got a huge budget, so totally we can do customized whatever they want type of stuff. But as soon as one client becomes more than 12% of your entire revenue, and then you lose them, it's like a meteor hitting your company. And so he's like, I never allow one client to represent more than X% of our gross revenue at any given time. which is really interesting, right? So it's like, do you turn down all these big, exciting, huge clients moving
It's just, I
forward?
mean, for us, it's been restricting them to separate, business units, which is like, this, if you're this big of a client, we're going to actually have separate MSA, separate agreements. So we'll have one engagement for paid media because that's a separate part of your team, separate divisions, probably a whole separate business unit within, this big brand versus, search is going to be different. And if we're doing UI, UX, CRO, whatever over here, marketing automation, they're separate, and it's setting the expectation. This doesn't always work, but this is at least the way that we've been approaching it, which is like, these are three separate clients. And if we lose one, it happened with sandals at one point. We were the first agency ever to get all of the SEO business for both sandals and beaches resorts. They had always kept them, those, even though they're both owned, one's for families, one's for couples, they always kept them completely separate. But we were growing. We first got brought into beaches because that was like we were the new agency on the block, and like they needed to test us with the lower risk brand, and we blew the numbers out so hard, like so big versus what their agency was able to deliver in the same time period on sandals, that we got both. And we had both for a bunch of years. And then ultimately they got a pitch for somebody that wanted to come in that was willing to take over the SEO and do the paid media for beaches. Before we had, we didn't have a paid media, it's just not what we did. And so losing that business hurt, but like it didn't hurt nearly as bad as if we had lost the sandals SEO contract as well. So I do think there are some creative ways to sort of.
Yeah. I could see how divvying it up, some of those could still be from your formula playbook, right? Like pieces of it could be very similar to what you're doing at a lower scale for your other clients.
Like they're I think the people that stick around with FTF now, it's like, they want big ideas. Like just to give you a for instance, I'm not going to give it away just yet because the implementation's not done, but UFC became our client, and one of the first things we were asked to do was say like, hey, UFC is now an FTF paid media client. Let's also are there organic opportunities? Do we want to pitch them or anything else? And just poking around, in their website and some of the brand portfolio, found an opportunity for them to, with not too much work, add about $6 million a month in revenue from organic, with a 2-week implementation timeline. And those are the types of ideas that I think that will keep the big brands around without that formulaic, systematic, same shit, different day approach to agency deliverables.
So let me ask you another question. I feel like working with SMBs, traditional agency style, you figure out what works, you repeat it, you scale it, you can build a great business. Is it similar to like Formula One, where it's like the innovation at Formula One trickles down to like Ford? When you work with a big brand, do you innovate things that you then bring down to folks with smaller budgets?
So I mean, a lot of the tooling, like a lot of the internal tooling that has come about, that has, I think, allowed us to build some economies of scale, has come from having the budget to build the tooling to support the bigger clients. And then we think, oh man, this is awesome. Like we can actually use this insight, this analysis, these dashboards for the rest of these other clients to potentially help them get from A to B. So in that sense, I think absolutely. In terms of some of the strategies, I mean, I'd like to think that we could bring, big, like super scalable content directory strategies, local directory strategies, Trojan horse websites. Most of the smaller SMBs don't have those budgets. Like one of my favorite strategies is still build, like if you're a direct to consumer brand, building an affiliate or a review site that's completely separate from your brand. There's no front end connection to it whatsoever. And we're not just reviewing your products at the top of all the listicles, but we're literally reviewing all of your direct competitors. And the success factor, success criteria is actually two-pronged in that sense. Whereas like not only do we now have an asset that we can use to rank for direct competitors' brand terms, because that shit's never happening with the brand site, but we can also link to those competitors. Not to mention, we now can also go sign up for all the affiliate account.
I was just going to say, do you affiliate off the competitors?
We've built websites. Home of Cozy is probably one of my favorite ones. We've built websites for our customers that not only rank for all their competitors' brand names, but are like very successful, revenue generating affiliate sites, where we're literally taking money out of the competitors' pockets by way of affiliate commissions.
That's so funny. And so is that a Trojan horse website? Is that what you meant by that term? That's so interesting. Wow.
Like those are the things like that's an idea.
Thinking about that all day.
Right, and then we can build a system around it, and we can do it over and over and over again across however many verticals we want. Like that, but those, I feel like those big ideas, they're far and few between in agency land.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Talk to me about Traffic Think Tank. So Traffic Think Tank, I didn't know about until a couple of months ago. I don't remember how I came across it, but I was looking through all the names that are a part of it. I was like, whoa, these are big SEO names. How did this come to be? Did you start that? And how did, like, tell me the story of that.
First blush of Traffic Think Tank was 2017. I launched it on Kajabi. I had 33 people sign up. 10 were paying $1,000 a month, and the other 23 were paying $500 a month. It was to get access to content that I later then pulled out and created a course around called 7-Figure Agency. That's all now included. It's still included in the TTT Academy, but like that's where it started. It was like that content. I just called it Traffic Think Tank initially, and realized that the price point was too high. The one-to-many broadcast model didn't work. People really wanted feedback. They wanted to be able to ask questions and have discussions and like really engage with other people. So at the time, I mean, now it seems like super obvious. It's like, of course you have a paid Slack community, but like paid Slack communities didn't exist back then. And there was only one option for even figuring out how to charge people to be in Slack, and it was called Slack Pass. And I ended up getting to know Seth, one of the founders, really well, because I had asked him to do ridiculous amounts of customization for me, because like there was no example. Nobody had done this before. They ultimately ended up having to change to Launch Pass because Slack was like, you're not using our brand name. Worked out well for them because Discord has since blown up, and like they're now a solution for, you know, paid membership gating. But the idea, like sort of realizing all these things. So on the flight to my honeymoon was when I literally had the idea to be like this, like, I think this could work in Slack at a much lower price point. And so I reached out to Ian House, who's been a friend of mine forever. He's a Carolinas guy now, but he was a Philly guy before that. And I had a relationship with Matt Barbie just from over the years. I had been a reader and a big fan of his, you know, his first blog, and reached out and was always really impressed with him. And just asked them both, like, hey, do you guys want to come try try creating a community where people can essentially pay like, you know, $100 a month as like an insurance plan. And if they've got questions or ideas, or they need feedback, or they've got a problem, like they can come ask questions. They both thought I was crazy. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're like, nobody's gonna fucking pay us to be in a Slack group. And so we launched. The go-to-market was like, we're just gonna see if we can get 100 people to sign up. So I emailed my list, Matt emailed his list. We had 100 people sign up in probably the first 20 days. Kept it that way for about 6 months, and learned a lot of the nuances around, like, you know, we used Slack posts, and we had a public web page where like we had our rules and guidelines, and it was super clunky and crappy, and just a bad sign up onboarding experience, and like had no way to resurface questions, and like had to constantly try to rework the guidelines. It just didn't know anything. Very move fast and break shit approach. But then, you know, about 6 months in, we're like, all right, let's open it up to another 100 people, and sold out, you know, within 6 days of that other 100. And so like suddenly at 200 people, we had, you know, a 6-figure a year business in 10 months. And it was like, shit, this might be onto something. So started, you know, bit by bit breaking off pieces of it and creating infrastructure. Did a third opening for another 100. And then after 300, something magical happened between 200 and 300 paying members. And that is, if you're in a walled garden and you're paying to be there, you're going to be active. You're going to put time in, you're going to put effort in, you're going to engage and ask questions and answer people. And at 200 people, we found it like we weren't the ones who having to answer the questions. By the time we'd come in the morning for our TTT time, like questions that were asked were being answered well by other members of the community. And like it became sort of this self-managing, like actual community that people loved and spent time in and helped each other with. And so after that point, like we removed the launch gates, and it was just sort of like anybody who wants to, you know, join and come on in.
That's really interesting to me, because I was gonna ask you, do the really high-end folks that are in there, that are the masters of the craft, that was the initial draw, get tired of people coming in and posting newbie type questions? But it sounds like you just addressed that. No, they don't even need to anymore, because it's like, I've followed Vaynerchuk for so long. I could answer a question that you're going to ask him the way that he would answer it at this
Yeah,
point.
and like the infrastructure, like we didn't really invest in the community like a real business until 2020. Like I'd say early 2020 was when we were like, all right, we need to hire a community manager and we need to hire a head of content programming. And we now have 3 community advocates that are all on the payroll, and they do threads each week. We've got our own newsletter called Rich Snippets that we have an employee that just runs like strategy and distribution on that. Like it's like a real business. Like TTT is like an 8-person team now.
Wow.
So it's like the amount of investment that was put into the infrastructure, but bit by bit, like I think we have one of the most impressive like learning experiences online right now, because we had to build it ourselves. So we've cobbled together this weird MarTech stack that's Stripe and MailChimp and LearnDash and Restrict Content Pro and Slack. And it just all actually works pretty well. We're constantly having to fix it and update it and make it cleaner. And we moved the whole front end into Vue.js, and but it's become like a real company, like a real thing. And people seem to really like it. Like, I mean, we get a lot of great feedback. And some of the people put a tremendous amount of their time into it. So it's been like an incredibly humbling thing to kind of watch. It's like if you're a musician or you're an artist, you create something, and as soon as you put it out there, it's no longer what you created, it's whatever anybody else says it is. And it's very much the same way with the community.
That's really cool. I mean, we might have to talk one day about sliding high level into that stack there, but for people listening that might not understand what we're talking about, this thing is basically this community where, let's say you provide SEO for your clients, whether you're doing very high end, very low end, whatever. I like what you said about it being an insurance policy, because it's like, if we run up against something that we're not sure about or we've never done before, you can pop into this community and literally have like some of the top SEOs in the world give you advice on how to handle that situation. Right? That's what I got from.
So like we have 440 agencies in there, and a lot of the agency channel is one of the most popular channels. It's also like we've also like what channels we have and the rules behind the channels, and just like all of that has been just a constant evolutionary process. Like it has changed so many times. But a lot of the agency channels, it's like sales tactic. It's like, hey, how would you price for this? Or the client came back and asked us this, and this was the scope, and this is what I think I should do. Am I doing this right? Or like, am I charging enough? Or that stuff's really interesting. Like it's not all the same questions, which is really cool. Like there's a lot of people bringing new technologies, and people just give so much. Like the amount of like free Python scripts and editorial calendar templates and keyword research, like the amount of stuff that like we are not even the ones creating and distributing anymore. It's just other members of the community. Like I really, it is humbling is the best word, right? It's like people just give so much, and they're paying to be there. I think it's because like they feel like they're a part of something. And I hope that the people that give as much as they do are getting as much in return. But to your point, like there are people in there that are there are SEOs that are so far beyond what I'm at, like the level I'm ever going to be at. Like we've got senior folks from Google, Uber, Square, HubSpot, Intuit, Airtasker, like you name it, like the king shits are in there, and like I learn more than I teach every week.
That's what I'm saying. When I saw the list of people that were in there, I was like, holy crap. And I can think back to times, because we ran, I'm not an SEO, but we had a really talented SEO team. And I can remember running into random stuff that we'd never done before. Like, hey, this is a multilingual site. Like, what should the URL structures be? And it's like, I don't know. Nobody knew. It was like, how do we go find this answer? I guess we start reading on Moz or something and hope somebody like posted it in a forum somewhere. But you could just go to this community, and that would be something that.
What's the best part too is like there's now this reference piece, right? So like we get like canonical tags are one of the most international canonicalization is one of the most ridiculous things to deal with to this day. And so there's constant questions around it, as there should be, because there's so many nuances. Matt shot this brilliant video tutorial on like how to approach, like not just from a mindset and a framework, like how to approach internationalization, but like how to actually think through localizing like bit by bit, directory by directory. And it's a great reference piece, but it's still like it doesn't work in a silo like that. I think that's the biggest thing we've learned is like, if you're going to be educating on any type of technical content, you need the reference content for people to digest and absorb as best they can, but then they need a place they can go ask questions and get clarifications and give examples. And like, without both of those pieces of the pie, like, I don't think it would work.
Yeah, really cool. If people are listening, and what's the URL for that?
Trafficthinktank.com.
Cool. Yeah, if you're doing SEO, I mean, it sounds like an amazing insurance policy for a very affordable price. So I would consider checking that out. Nick, I don't want to keep you for too long, but I would love to talk a little Web3 with you. So awesome. I'm basically a Bitcoin maxi, but it's it's funny, right? Because when NFTs came out, I got caught up in the craze, and then I after a few weeks, I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, everything I had bought was essentially worthless.
That's I bought my first NFT.
Possession is a pizza scoop, an evil pizza ice cream scoop that I paid, I don't know, $200 for or something. And I was like, stop it, turn this off. I'm not looking at OpenSea anymore or whatever. But I am a firm believer that everything is about to change. What I don't like is that I've seen a ton of agency influencers. Now their daily newsletter or whatever is just about crypto, how to make money in crypto. And I'm like, this is not a good direction that's happening here. What I am very curious of is how legitimate agencies working with big brands, again, like going back to like the Formula One trickles down type of stuff. What are you guys thinking? Why did you start a Web3 agency, first of all? And what are you seeing coming down the pipe?
So the like, you already have an agency. Why would you create? You just spent 7 years getting out of this agency. Why are you creating another one? And the conversation is actually pretty fun because I bought my first NFT in April, and just started going crazy. Like, I've built and sold 2 software companies. I'm a big time like art collector in real life. Like, I owned an art gallery for a couple of years. Like, it was like it was the perfect storm of like the place to suck up all my time, energy, and money. And I started buying things. I did the exact thing you don't do in NFTs right now, right? Which is I just started buying stuff because I liked it. I liked to be an artist. I liked the art, and I just spent so much money. Like, I remember like my wife at one point, like how much have you spent? And like went back through. I was like, fuck, like I need to chill out. Just because like became like an addiction.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the funny thing to see it there, I don't know if you're of the Gala Games, like you can see Gala Games did their Frank Miller drop for Sin City. And the best part about it was, if you bought the Gala Games Sin City crystal, the NFT code, claim code is actually etched into this piece of crystal.
That's interesting.
It's like, there are so many nuances to all of this that like we're just starting to see come to fruition. Like, I'm talking to a guy right now that has a company that makes that is doing airline tickets as NFTs, mortgages as NFTs, a different one that's doing car titles. Like, it's going I spoke to a guy this morning that is working on an application to allow you to actually do wallet verification. So like you can use NFTs as tickets to get into events. Yep. We do an event live every year in Traffic Think Tank. Called TTT Live, and we gave all of everybody who bought a ticket this year, we gave them all an NFT, and we did a full mint. So like, if you go to OpenSea and you search Traffic Think Tank, you can find the TTT NFT on there. Okay. So like, it's just proliferated everything. To the extent that, so the Web3 agency didn't start with, it was not even an inkling of an idea. What happened for me was I kept getting asked by friends and family constantly, like, what is an NFT? What is like it seems like you're buying, like you're naming stars. Like, this is all fake. This is a huge Ponzi scheme. It's a scam. It's all wash trade from whales. What are you doing? And then as more and more momentum built and more news came out about like life-changing wealth from like 14-year-olds, and like you start to realize, you start to know somebody who's like made millions of dollars. It's like, shit, I have to start paying attention to this. Then the question started becoming around like, how do I know what to buy? What do I look out for? I don't want to get rugged. Like, what are the do's and don'ts? What are the new collections that are minting? What are the collections I should be watching for swings? And I answered the question so many times that I was like, I need to do something from a content perspective. So I created a newsletter on Substack called JPEG Vault. I hired a full-time employee, Jay, who full-time just lives in Discord 10 hours a day and writes these updates. It's a daily free newsletter.
The Discord time required is insane. I was like,
I couldn't do it. So I was like, I'm just going to hire somebody. Like, I can't do this. Like, I don't have the time. And what ended up happening was, as JPEG Vault grew, more and more of the people that were coming into JPEG Vault were getting attached to other projects, whether it was an NFT project, an on-ramp project, like a SaaS, or some other Web3 smart contract driven technology, and leads started coming in, like not asked for, not solicited. They just started coming in. I started having conversations about projects that I was like, man, this sounds really cool. Like this is the future. And I'm an NFT max. He's like, I think they're not going anywhere. I think it is absolutely the future. I'm already seeing it in so many instances. Rainmaker Games, I think, yeah, their literal launch is tomorrow, and like that's going to be the biggest P2E news. I say this year, but like probably even going into most of 2022 realistically. And off the back of that, I brought this to my board, and I was like, hey, I want to build a capability area for FTF, around Web3. And they were like, what do you mean? And they're like, SEO, paid media, like email, copy, content, design, and development. We got it. We do all this stuff. It's like, well, no, you don't. So like in order to be a Web3 marketing agency, yes, all the fundamentals of digital marketing still apply, but there's all these additional components that like FTF is not built for, like the design and management
contracting,
creating a content strategy for inside a Discord, creating social content strategies for organic, where you're actually creating the community, tiering out token economics, where you're, pegging your NFT to a specific token, but you're not selling the token. The token can only be airdropped as long-term utility for the NFT itself. The event component, influencer component, art support, or derivative projects, like so many pieces of strategy that have nothing to do with what FTF does. And FTF it's not full of crypto natives. And if you've ever talked to anybody who's in Web3 or has a Web3 company, they're not going to hire somebody who's not a crypto native. No chance. Sure. Nor like crypto people don't hire normies to do their marketing. It's just not how it works. And so ultimately I was like, well, I've got way too much lead volume to ignore this. So I got the blessing from my board, and 6 weeks ago started actually sending out proposals for these leads that were coming in, and 6 weeks later, I've got 5 employees and for 5 clients, and like it's suddenly a real thing.
Wow.
But it's everything. It's the future. Like it's not going anywhere. The funniest thing I think I've been a part of was I was down in Miami a couple of weeks ago for Art Basel and NFT Basel, and I sat in on dinners where the conversations were already about Web4. Like I think it's us, like people like me and you, and people in our sort of like the millennial to zillennial sort of age range. Like we saw the advent of Web 2. Nobody knew what Web 1 was. We got to watch the bubble pop, but going from Web 1 to Web 2, we saw the people that were early in Web 2 and how much like Elon Musk is a great example. PayPal is the advent of Web 2. Like when payments became digitized, was like really considered the precipice of Web 2. And here we are on Web 3, where smart contracts exist, where we can put things in place. We can contractually obligate all sorts of events to happen based on digital events taking place, where there cannot be human error because it's written into the smart contract. And the idea that so the adoption rate is so much greater and it's growing so fast. And the truest statement I've heard, I think, ever about crypto is, a week in crypto is like a year in anything else. Like the speed is breakneck. And I think that's the most exciting part. For me and for anybody else, I think, who's desperately trying to get their head wrapped around this stuff.
So let me ask you, I think the common use cases are fleshed out and clear, to me at least, right? Events, like any ticket you buy is going to be an NFT in the future. The music industry, right? I think NFTs, selling your songs as NFTs where people are profiting as the artist profits and all of that, I think is clearly going to
residual commissions that are not gated by the record industry.
I mean, that's a mind-blowing thing that we don't even have conceptualized yet, but it's going to revolutionize the industry, I'm sure. Have you seen anything yet that relates to the traditional agencies or the traditional industries most agencies are operating in, as far as the high-level world, which is, medical, home services, solar, auto, all these types of things? Is that like a couple of tiers down? Like it'll trickle down there someday, or
I mean, like I'm seeing like Gala Games is a perfect example. Like we're seeing it in e-com. Like I'm seeing more and more companies that are that are really trying to be at the bleeding edge of Web3, where if you spend this much, we'll give, like, you get this NFT, or if you buy this pair of pants, that, like, I forget the name of this company. This is a real thing. You buy a pair of pants, every pair of pants, the inside pocket has a QR code. You scan that QR code and you have the opportunity to mint an NFT. It might be a rare, who knows? I mean, that's the whole idea of the mint, right? But again, if you're the one bringing it onto the blockchain, you're the wallet minting it, then you've got the permanent residual commission based on whatever percentage is written in the smart contract. Like that piece of financial utility being attached to like all these different business transactions. So like the idea that you can sell me an apple and that apple has a QR code on it that like enables me to earn one apple coin every day I don't eat it. Like that financial component, like that rewards component that is taken off in essentially every other facet of life, home services, solar. I mean, all of them have rewards programs and referral programs. This is just a much smarter, more sustainable way to do that. So
it will get to us at some point, right? And one other thing that I find myself thinking about is one of the things I'm most excited about Web3 is it should do away with passwords, right? Like I don't need a password for every website I visit. They need to request access to my wallet, right? Like I define my information and you can request to connect to it. And if I okay it, now your website has my information. I haven't thought this through far enough, but that's eventually going to change marketing, right? Like instead of, hey, put your information into this form to claim this offer, that's all going to flip, right? Like, hey, connect your wallet to get access to this. And, I don't know how much that's going to change or if that's going to be a big shift for all of us that we have to deal with, whether it's better or worse. I just know it's going to change at some point.
And I think the most exciting part about all of this is like very much, at least in my very humble experience, like the more I know about Web3, the less I know. Mm-hmm. And it just feels never ending. Like it's just this like endless spiral of new information.
It's amazing how it's both exhilarating and daunting at the same time, right?
I would say terrifying, but yeah, daunting is a great word too.
Yeah. Well, Nick, thank you so much for coming on. You've got so much going on. Out of all of that, what are you pushing the hardest? What are you promoting right now? Where should people go?
So like the next iteration of JPEG Vault is probably the thing I'm most excited about. So we are shifting the purpose of it away from just being like a newsletter, like a daily way to keep your finger on the pulse of like swings in floor prices and new mints and drops. And we're going to be doing it, approaching it. We're almost done with the first 10, but we're going to be relaunching it as an independent verification service. And the idea there is me and my team at Niftyco all believe that fully doxed is the future of Web3.
Can you explain what that means for people that don't know?
So a big part of crypto has always been the anonymity, and the fact of the matter is, with the advent of NFTs and people, with like Fidenza, having 100 ETH floor and apes at 50, and like with people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in equivalent, ether, and like there is going to be a continued expectation, in our opinion, that like who you're buying this from, who the artist is. They're not just a name or a handle anymore. It's this person. They live here. This is their background. This is their experience. Especially with NFTs, right? Like rug pulls happen every single day. Like people get scammed out of their money. Dev teams show up, they hype the mint, they pay influencers, they give big back end percentages on the back end because they don't have any cash in the front end to do it. They mint out and they disappear. They don't see through their roadmap. The floor drops to zero. They've essentially just scammed however many hundreds of thousands of people. And in a fully doxed world, that can't happen. And like, that's the direction that we're already seeing. And we believe that's the future. And so we want to put a stake in the ground and show that we mean it. And so JPEG Vault has a community wallet. It's not public yet, but it will be when we launch this. And we are going to be buying into any of the collections that we're verifying. And we're going to have, a verification page. There's going to be verification pages for every collection. this collection is made, was minted for this price on this date. Here's the number of unique holders. Here's the floor shipped. All the stuff you can get on Etherscan and some from OS anyway. But the extra additional pieces are like, here's the founding team. Here's their background. Here's their LinkedIn. Here's what else they do. Here's what else they're connected to. Here's their wallets. Here's our wallet. Here's an interview with all of the founders. Here's the actual utility. Here's the tokenomics, like bringing this sort of like spotlight into the NFT industry as sort of the first step toward making it publicly available and people not being able to hide behind OX wallet addresses anymore.
So for those of you watching who are still watching, I know we veered off of what we typically talk about on the show, but I do think it's fascinating to talk about this stuff because it's coming at light speed. He mentioned something. So fully doxed means people know who you are, right? You're not hiding behind a pseudonym or a handle or whatever.
PFP, yeah.
And so when we talk about wallets, and he's saying like, here's my wallet, here's their wallet. You can go to somebody's wallet and see all the things that they own. And so that's very interesting, right? Because like, I saw Gary Vaynerchuk tell somebody one time, I don't know that you have a Rolex sitting on your nightstand, right? Like if I never meet you in person, I don't know you have a Rolex. But if you're trying to like project something to the world, I could know what cryptos you hold. I could know what NFTs you own. You know what I mean? So like, it's very interesting what's going to happen there. But the concept of airdropping, I think, could come to our world, what we're doing, traditional agency stuff.
We use it as, it's a distribution strategy we use when we launch new collections. We find really important holders that have, collection overlap, and we built some tooling to enable us to be able to do these things. And we will airdrop tokens as a way to start the conversation.
So for what people don't know what that means, it means if you bought something, right, you have something I made in your wallet, I can then gift straight into your wallet new things, right? So I imagine that's going to change everything for like loyalty programs, really interesting.
It's already like, you think of like the biggest collections that are crushing on marketing, like Lazy Lions comes to mind first. Like they continuously have done additional art support airdrops. And like the art support, like the nice part about it is their floor is high enough now that it's prohibitive for a lot of people. A lot of people don't have $6 or $7 grand to spend to go buy a JPEG. But what they can do is they can go spend a couple $100 and get a bungalow, and that bungalow still gets them into the community as a holder. And so they have real value. And it's the same with like the Bored Apes, right? With the Bored Apes, one of the first things they did was they airdropped serums. You had an M1 or an M2.
Amazing.
You could use those to mint new versions and new mutated versions of your original ape. Those mutated versions, I think the floor on mutants right now is like 6 ETH. So like, that's what, 25 grand? Like there's real true value. Like the ENS airdrop is the biggest news ever in crypto. Like if you had an ENS address and you had it for more than 30 days and it was registered for more than a year, come October 30th, you got $3,000 for every domain that you had registered, just for free. Just $3,000 for every domain you registered, up to 120 grand per wallet, just showed up the next day in your wallet. Like it's still the Wild West. It's still so early. It's not going to be like this forever, but it's like this right now.
But I do think that what we're talking about, forget about JPEGs and whatever, this distribution model is going to come to small business for sure at some point in the near future. And so that's why I try not to let myself go down the rabbit hole because, I end up buying pizza ice cream cones and stuff like that. But I do want to stay close enough to it so that it's not like a blindside when it does hit the small business world, because I feel like it inevitably will.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Nick, thank you so much for hanging out, man. I appreciate it.
This was awesome, Chase. Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks everybody for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.